So how has China fared at the Winter Games, and will a new crop of athletes be inspired to go for the gold? I pose that question to Norman O'Reilly, professor and head of the Sports Administration Department at Ohio University's College of Business.
We think of China in the Summer Games as being one of the top two countries really in the world, and in Paralympic sport, China has continued to perform very, very high. But the Winter Games, it's a relatively new story. As you know, you first started in 1980, didn't win a medal until I think 1992. First gold was until Salt Lake City, I believe, in 2002. So to where the country is at now is quite a strong success story that many other countries would be very enviable of. As you say, you're at 9 medals, not quite the best ever. I believe Vancouver was a few more than that. Still got a couple of days to go. But then the high performance, as you mentioned, there's a gold medal, world record, I think very positive. And there's been a real history in recent years, Canada, where I'm from originally, being one of those countries, of performing at a very high level when you host. Resources come, athletes are peaking. So I think most of the rest of the world, and I'm sure internally, would expect to see a jump when you host in 2022.
So that being said, do you think this all provides some momentum in also inspiring the next generation of Chinese athletes? Do you think we can see a larger Chinese team to compete in the Beijing Games?
Absolutely, and there's many, and I know your sport experts have been following other models. I mean, Canada, right now we're having one of our best Winter Games ever, potentially will end up being the best, despite some troubles in our sports of hockey and curling. But if you look back a number of decades, Canada was winning very few no medals, much like China was in the 1990s and 80s when you first joined the Winter Games. And this long-term athlete development, talent identification, building the infrastructure and the sport organizations, which has been happening in China, and that's a continuing growth in the successful countries who do it. So there's a lot of precedent to support that, yes, with all the things that are going on, the growth of sport, the investment, the success so far, I mean, I think the expectation would be at least where you're at now, but much more likely more medals, broader, bigger team, all those kind of things that you want to see when you're the host nation.
Well, you mentioned you're from Canada. You grow up with a lot of these sports. You start as a young child, skiing, ice skating. What do you make of China's goals to introduce winter sports to younger children, bringing those sports to schools, building new ski resorts? Will that all help?
Absolutely. And so this is a challenge around the world, as we know, from a high-performance sport perspective. You've got to get the talented athlete with the right coach, the right facilities, at the right age, all to align and be motivated. And there's many, many factors, as you know, what goes into an Olympic champion or a professional superstar. And the more the base, the broader your base of that participation number of people, the higher the likelihood you find another. If it was basketball, you'd say Yao Ming, right? But you find another superstar who could eventually win an Olympic medal. So the broader your base and the stronger the development program. So in addition to getting kids interested in skating or skiing or luging or whatever the case may be, then when they do have those things we just talked about, talent, background, then you have a coaching program in place, professional coaches, sports sciences, facilities for them to compete at the international level and get from that level to having the precursors to actually being an international athlete. So yes, those things all will help. And it's a struggle around the world for many, many countries. And you also have geography. I mean, I've been to China a number of times where there is winter and there are natural places. And so there is a geography advantage that China would have over a country like India, for example, in trying to grow a Winter Olympic program.
So very quickly, looking ahead to Beijing 2022, just your thoughts on the progress with venues so far, the organization, as we know. And as you mentioned, China is no stranger when it comes to hosting the Olympic Games.
Yeah, I had the wonderful fortune of going to China 3 times around the 2008 Games as part of the Canadian team and seeing the progress. I mean, an extraordinary, organized technology, on time, over-delivering. I think anyone in sport has a very high expectation of the quality, the timeliness of the venues. But then that's also a challenge for you, right? Because now the expectations are very high. People are expecting. Beijing brought the bar up for Summer Games, and I would be expecting that we'll see Beijing bring the bar up for the Winter Games in terms of quality, efficiency, athlete services, all those wonderful things that Beijing did for the summer sports. So I think I have high expectations, but I know that in turn would be a challenge for the organizers.